Hi there, I'm Tony Peters from iconfetch.com, getting you psyched up for Record Store Day, back to Black Friday, November 29th, 2013. And there's a lot of great titles from a lot of different labels, and we're talking about limited edition vinyl only on Back to Black Friday. We're going to concentrate on the releases from Legacy Recordings this time around. The folks at Sony Legacy have been kind enough to furnish us with some promotional items ahead of Record Store Day to get you all psyched up for Back to Black Friday. Now, they have a lot of interesting titles, one of which is Sidetracks from Bob Dylan, which is all of the singles and non-LP stuff that is a part of a much larger, complete Bob Dylan recordings box set. And so that's really cool. There's also titles from Cheap Trick, Roy Orbison, Harry Nilsson, Jimi Hendrix, Sly and the Family Stone, and The Clash. We're going to concentrate on 6 titles that we received early in anticipation of Record Store Day. The first 3 titles we're going to talk about actually all come from a brand new box set from Miles Davis called The Original Mono Recordings. Now, this is a 9 CD box set covering the first 9 albums that Miles recorded for Columbia Records in their original mono form for the first time ever digitally. These have been lost for a long time. Finally, these are being made available. And to kind of increase the interest on this, Legacy is issuing 3 of the titles individually in vinyl form. Now, the crown gem of the collection is obviously this one, Kinda Blue, the greatest selling jazz album of all time in its original mono form. Now, if you think about it, back in 1959 when this was released, stereo was just in its infancy. Mono was king. So this is the way most people heard this record. And the mix on this is great because everything's front and center. The stereo mix, which is a lot more common, has the instruments way spread out in the mix. This is really a fabulous sounding record. Now, if we open it up, front, back cover, in all the Miles Davis titles, they are limited edition. They are numbered individually, which is very nice. If we open it up, a heavy grade plastic inner sleeve. And then as you can see, it's got the original 6 Eyes Columbia record label, which was the way this originally was featured. I've had a chance to listen to this and compare it to an original mono version of this from 1959, and I can tell you that this new version is warmer sounding. It's got more bass to it, and that would really make sense because in 1959 we weren't really talking about high fidelity anything back then. The other thing to note is that side 2 of this, for years and years and years, ran too slow on the original versions of this. Now, in the CD era, they have corrected this, and they have also corrected this for the new mono mix of Kinda Blue. So that's one of the titles. The next title that releasing for Record Store Day, this is probably the most rare of all of them. Miles Davis album called Jazz Track. Now, what this was a soundtrack to a French movie. Miles went over to France and recorded with a completely different group of musicians for this soundtrack, and this is pretty rare. But also of note is side 2 of this features the same personnel that would just a few months later record on Kinda Blue. So we're talking about John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Paul Chambers, Bill Evans, Jimmy Cobb. These are the same guys that recorded on Kinda Blue, and that makes Jazz Track even more interesting. The third title in the Miles Davis set is something called Miles and Monk at Newport. This is live stuff. Actually, Miles and Monk never play together. The Miles is from 1958, and the Thelonious Monk is from 1963, but this is a pretty sought-after album, and it is restored to its original mono version as well. Now, the other titles we're going to talk about are the Paul Simon collection, and 3 titles again. In here, it's the first 3 albums, studio albums that he recorded for Columbia Records. That would be Paul Simon, which features me and Julio down by the schoolyard and mother and child reunion. There Goes Rhymin' Simon, which is one of his biggest albums with Kodachrome and Loves Me Like a Rock. And then Still Crazy After All These Years, which features the title song, also 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, and My Little Town, which he guested with Art Garfunkel again. So, had a chance to listen to these as well. They sound fabulous. They're nice and quiet. 180 gram vinyl. The interesting thing about these is that, like with There Goes Rhymin' Simon, you get the gatefold, right? So it opens up like that. And one of the neat touches they have for this, if we open this up, haha, there is a download card for each one of these albums. This is becoming more and more commonplace with albums. People like to have the album, like to hold it in their hand, but then they also like the convenience of digital. Well, you got best of both worlds. Here is a card. You enter in this code, and it allows you to download the MP3s online. So there you go. There's a run through of 6 of the titles available from Legacy Recordings for Record Store Day, back to Black Friday 2013. Go out there and buy some records. I'm Tony Peters from Icon Fetch.